were you brought up in a really religious household? How was it?
Yeah, I was brought up in a religious household. Roman Catholic, Italian father, Germanic Franco mother, altar boy for 5 years, Catholic schools all the way up until about grade 10. Considered vocation in the priesthood at one point during my young adolescence, and then biology took over, and that whole celibacy thing kind of ruined it for me. So
you got married.
Yeah.
Before you could. And now you're atheist, right?
I am an atheist, yeah.
How did you lose your faith?
It was a gradual process, having discussions with local friends who were attending university while I was still in high school, having philosophical discussions, and then basically just working things out for myself. No one particular book did that. I would say having discussions with my brother Mark and his friend Jim Shea. He was a philosophy major before I went to university, so these ideas were already generating.
But it wasn't like all of a sudden a revelation or something.
No, it wasn't a singular event. It wasn't like a crisis of faith where I couldn't reconcile the evils of the world with an all-benevolent God. It wasn't that type of thing. It was much more gradual. As a young boy, I would ask my mother questions that I would find suspicious, with the answers, and then just realized, well, it probably makes more sense that there isn't any particular type of God.
And you mentioned philosophy. I guess that played a big role in your...
Oh, yes. I mean, I entered university as an English major and philosophy minor, and those switched after my first semester because I had a really very good introduction to philosophy, a professor named Jakob Amstutz, a Swiss professor. And when we did the Republic of Plato and the Crito and the Phaedo and the Meno, just a man dying for the sake of getting people to try to think more clearly, just spoke to me, much more than my other courses did. So I was hooked.
Did you read the whole Bible?
I had never read the whole Bible from beginning to end. Roman Catholics, you get a catechism, and you know all the main sections of the Bible, but not in its entirely word for word, beginning to end as a child or an adolescent. No, but certainly knew the choice passages that were taught to you in school.
I know what you mean.
Very selective.
Yes.
I'm probably one of the world's worst bloggers. I get around to it once a month kind of thing. I'm certainly not a P.Z. Myers by any stretch of the imagination. But, basically it's, criticaldonkey.com, and I'm on Twitter at criticaldonkey. And this is all, I put this in my book that came out, How to Become a Really Good Pain in the Ass, so it's in there as well. So.
How did you come up with a name like that for your blog?
We were throwing ideas around with friends at the kitchen table, and because the book's called Pain in the Ass, and ass and donkey are synonyms, it became Critical Donkey, and sure enough, when you do a search, nobody had taken that, so it just became the one to go with. Yeah.
Do you think the time is right for a commercial atheist TV channel?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I think the name and the word atheism still scares a lot of people, but I do think the time is right. I don't see why there should be any impediments for that. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be granted a license for something like that. It just, absolutely, the time is right. Yeah, I wish you all the luck in the world for getting that.
What does a philosopher of science and ethics do?
Well, tries to get tenure when not getting kicked out of universities for being an atheist. But basically, we think about the nature of science and what it is that scientists do. We study the scientific method. We try to understand the distinctions between what people try to say on a kind of a supernatural level versus a natural level. And with ethics, of course, my next book is devoted entirely to the field of ethics. So I'm very much interested looking in a naturalized form of ethics, looking at humans as another species, and how do we value actions, good and bad, right and wrong, fair and unfair, and how do we come up with a good system of ethics that would be fair to our entire species, irrespective of what their supernatural views happen to be. So the talk I'm giving at this particular conference focuses on that particular field.
Can you describe a typical workday for you?
Yeah, a typical workday, any day of the week is always going to be the same. So, I mean, from any second that I'm conscious and not sleeping, I'm pretty much thinking about various aspects of my research. So it will vary from talks I have to prepare for upcoming conferences to aspects of courses that I might be teaching where I have to mark or grade or come up with assignments and that sort of thing, to basically working on my lifelong project, which is something called the Talk project, or the Onion Skin Theory of Knowledge project, where I'm very much interested in putting together a really complex system of information that will be presented in the least biased form we can develop, so that anybody wishing to attain information on various topics that matter to society can get information from this source and know that it's gone through a rigorous system that has consciously reduced biases, so that any political party will know that this information has been taken from various points of reference without any particular political or geopolitical slant, so that it will be of great use, I'm hoping, to the Senate here in Canada, but also worldwide as well. It'll be an open source project.
What's the best thing and the worst thing about the USA?
The best thing about the USA, I would say, is its... I love the diversity of its geography. I love being able to go from state to state and seeing vastly different types of geographical landscapes, and then the people that are reflected in the various types of states there. I like the fact that they are generally a engaging people, but by the same token, the worst thing that's happened to that country is the divisiveness between this crazy polarization of red and blue states, of Republicans and Democrats, of the religious right and the so-called secular Democrats. And that's unfortunate because, I mean, they were largely centrists their entire existence. But for whatever reasons, historically or otherwise, they have polarized, and that's just tearing the country apart. What could be one of the greatest countries in the world is just undermining itself with this ridiculous kind of ideological polarization.
And I could also ask the same questions. What's the best and the worst thing about Canada?
Canada, again, the best thing about us is our capacity to recognize differences and diversities and to be able to be relatively on board about the fact that irrespective of who we are and what we believe, there are some underpinnings of secular rules that we can abide by. And if we do so, then it really means we'll get the most out of our country, even though we might disagree. The worst thing about Canada, unlike the US, is that those who happen to be of various types of religious or political views will not always have them above board. And so decisions will be made about people behind closed doors and beneath what I call the veneer of tolerance. So above board, they look like they're fully tolerant. At different universities that I've taught at, people seem to be smiling and greet you with a handshake and are apparently tolerant of my secular, atheistic, evolutionary, naturalistic views, but then decisions get made behind closed doors that are very nasty and very hurtful and affect people in really, deleterious ways, where I'd just much rather they be up front with me and let me know, as they would in the States, what they believe, so you know what you're dealing with and you know what to expect from these people. So that hiddenness, I think, that kind of two-faced approach in Canada, I think really is unfortunate.
Beer or wine?
Yeah. See, I don't drink alcohol at all.
None.
No, I'm a very boring person. You know, I'm not a big... I don't smoke. I don't drink. Even with coffee, I have 2 sugars and 2... You know, I'm not a purist in that respect. So I guess if I were a drinker, you know, because of Socrates and that tradition, it'd have to be wine, right? Because they would get together and drink copious amounts of wine and talk philosophy. So
that could actually help.
It could. It could. And I like good food, right? So I know wine helps with fine dining. So
why?
Essentially, in response to that, it would have to do with because of the relationship of complex systems, and we seek out what I call a balance or an equilibrium amongst those systems. So these are complex physical and natural as well as cultural systems. This is a cultural system that we're engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
So we tend to gravitate towards an equilibrium, what Csikszentmihalyi called flow, what jazz musicians call in the groove, what athletes call in the zone. And we try to get into those systems and get to that particular point where we do what I call an optimal functionality within those various systems. And that's what we try to attain, and that's what we try to achieve in life. So that would be my answer for at this particular point in time to that one-word question, yes.
Wonderful. I'm taking notes now because I'm going to write that down next time. Thank you very much for being part of the show.
My pleasure.
And it was great to see you.
Glad to be here.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you.